Wait a few minutes for people to join up. Good morning. It's a partially cloudy day up here in Terrace, British Columbia. Nice and cool, as expected for winter. That is normal, of course. So today, instead of a playthrough, what we're going to do is go through the editors, because that is a huge benefit of what we've included within the campaign series. As typical with all of the campaign series games, you have an organizational editor, a map editor, and a scenario editor. Good morning, Bess. Thank you for joining. Good morning, Dolce. Thank you for joining. I hope everyone can hear me well. I'm going to presume so. Just right now we're looking at the Windows Explorer instance of the game install. And there's a couple of things that we're going to go over before we jump into the editors. And one of those things is, if you don't want to watch the intro video, or if you don't want to listen to the background music, all you have to do is go into the videos folder, hunt down your novideo.txt, right click, copy, and paste it into your folder. You'll do the same for the sounds, which is at the bottom, nomusic.txt. You'll copy and paste that into this main folder like I have done here. You can see both of these things. So now whenever I launch the game, I won't hear the music in the background, nor will I see the video, the intro video. Good morning, John. Thank you for joining. Great. That's good to hear. Just confirmed that my microphone was working, because you never know. Technology baffles me sometimes. So yeah, we have that option there for you if you don't want to listen to the music or watch the video at the intro. Good day and welcome, Berto. Thank you for joining. The next thing, did you know we have mods? And you can access those. You can take a look in our mods folder. So if this is a pre 101 update, but we do have an unofficial one, which you can find on the forum at Matrix Games. Let me show you. It is recommended to grab this if you haven't done so for at least Boot Camp number 4. For some reason, the Boot Camp 4 map labels were removed from the map for, we don't know why, but it has been remedied and you can grab the patch here. It is super simple to install. I even provide a video for you to follow along. It literally takes 2 minutes. But we will include this in official update for 1.01 update. We do have some things that we are tweaking to improve the game, of course. It never ends, does it? Okay, anyways, the main two mods are these two here. One is the 2D Blue Water mod. So typically, if you're in a game, let me open it up for you, and you can see what I'm talking about. Let's find a map that is let's find a map that has the delta. Yeah, there we go. We're just going to open up this one. So I'm going to show you this map the way that it comes with the game. Turn the Fog of War on. We're actually not going to play this, but just so you can see the difference with the mod enabled. So blah, 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 we don't care. So in 2D, you'll notice that in some cases the shallow river hexes, like this here, have a light brown texture, which is historical in the sense that the water features were typically muddy. But let me exit. So let's, I'm going to take a little sample of that just so you can see the difference. And let's add our mod, and you can do that simply by accessing the JSJME mod enabler. I've made a shortcut onto my desktop. And you select it, simply slide it over, and now it is activated. So you can see I have the 1.01 update that I mentioned before, plus now I have the 2D Blue Water mod. So let's reopen that scenario. And you'll see the difference that it makes. Just 1 second. There it is. Too many scenarios. Who does that? Okay. And okay, and then we'll just go back into that particular mode, and you can see that the water has now changed to a blue color. Let me grab that screenshot that I took, and there you'll see the difference. So if you prefer blue water, you have that option. It's already built into the game. You just have to enable the mod, that's all. I prefer it without, but other people will prefer it with, because it helps identify the water better. So there we go. I will go back into the mod enabler and remove it, but as you know, it's there. The Warhorse North Vietnamese Camo mod, this is awesome, especially if you're playing with the North Vietnamese along the DMZ, and that'll be particularly useful for the post-68 scenarios. It just adds a whole bunch of different camouflage to the various units and vehicles. It looks really nice. I like it. But that's not why we're here today. Anyways, now you know they're there. Let's do it. You'll see that I have added shortcuts to the various editors, but you can access them again through the main launcher. Through here, you just click edit Aurora Battle, edit map, edit scenario. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the map editor. So the way that this works is that it'll default where it'll allow you to choose an existing map already. We're going to do that, but I'll show you how to make a new map later. So all of these are scenario maps. These maps are specific to a particular scenario. But in this master maps folder, we provide you a whole bunch of other maps that are ready for you to chop up and use how you would like. So let's do that. I'm going to grab one of these large maps, and we're going to cut it down into a smaller map. So here is the Warzone C, D, and Saigon area map. It's probably the largest map that we have in the game. As you can see, it is incredibly massive. This is our current view that we are looking at right now in this area, and the map goes everywhere. So up here is Warzone D, over here is Warzone C, we have the Iron Triangle, we have Saigon area, etc., etc. Let's turn on some labels so you can see. The map extents are, what is it, 580 hexes by 820 hexes at 250 meters per hex. It's huge. This also includes the Australian area of operations, or part of it anyways, the eastern side. western side, sorry. There is fighting in here. I haven't built scenarios for that yet, but they will be coming. Anyways, back to our task. So as you can see, this is our map editor, and we have loaded up one of the master maps. Before we do anything else, what we're going to do is save as a new file name. And we're going to call this, just as a test right now, we're going to call it a test map. Or let's call it my scenario. Because we're gonna build a very, very simple scenario just to give you an overview. I will later on provide you more information and better videos on doing this in detail to help you with your scenario design. So today we're going to go over, obviously, the map editor. We're going to go over the organizational editor. We're going to go over the scenario editor. And if we have time, I might even jump into the Lua scripting, at least give you an introduction to it. All right, so now we've saved this, and we can do any edits to this as we wish. Let's look for a little area that we would be interested in using. I don't know. How about this peninsula? Let's use that. It's simple, it's straightforward, it's easy. Now, obviously, we don't want to have this entire thing, so we want to be able to just cut out the piece of map that we want. So the easiest way to do that is turn on the hex coordinates, zoom in. So we want to ensure, so let's turn off the map labels. That'll improve scrolling. There's a lot of labels on this because it's such a large area. Therefore, the amount of labels and things will slow down the interface. We're going to use this element, this hex coordinate here, or let's make it a round number so it's easier to do. How about 435, 360? So what we're going to do is we're going to shift the map so that this one is in our top corner. How do we do that? Well, we go to Extent, and then we go to Shift. Now, because we want to move the map to the left and up, we have to incorporate the negative number because we're going backwards. So the X shift is going to be 435, so 435, and the Y shift is going to be minus 760. Press OK, and we should have seen the map got shifted all the way up there. So that turns everything else blank because there was no information there before. Makes sense that it isn't capable of being used. Now we're going to find the lower left corner, and we can do that at 7050. Sorry. We can do that by Extent, Resize, and just change the extent. So 70, 50. Poof, there we go. We have our new map size. So we can save that. And now, the next time we load this, let's go do that, just so we can see. I usually sort by date modified because it's easier to see the last thing that I worked on, and then open it up. And now we have our map. So the reason why, another good reason for doing this, to make our own maps, is that we don't want to be touching the master maps. We don't want to be touching the scenario maps in case we update them later on for whatever reason. Maybe the scenario has changed or something like that. It is important to make sure you leave the stock stuff alone and change the names so that you're using your own stuff. And we won't, then if you make a change to a stock map or something, you can, or your stuff won't be affected by having a different name. Let's see. So here I'm noticing an error with this particular map on the master map. Let's fix that. So that is an airfield. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can change. For example, if I want to add a building here, I just select this particular unit here, or this option, which is a building. I click on the hex that I want, and then I press Tab to cycle through the options. There's usually 6 or 12 options depending on the unit or the item that's being selected. You can change it to a village if you want. Again, there's a number of different options by pressing Tab. Or if I have a map that is smaller than 500 by 500 hexes, I can undo it if I want, or redo it. Or I can change it to a city or suburb type, or a city type. These are industrial type buildings. So you'll notice that if I turn the map hints on, I can identify which cycle cell number is being displayed as I choose them. So in this case, these industrial buildings have 12 different options. These are military type infrastructure buildings. Again, there's 12 different options. And the airfield, again, you have hard surface, not so hard surface, and 12 different options for each of the different orientations. So we're just going to clear that. Let's go back here. So we notice that we're going to turn off the labels. We notice that this has the wrong cycle cell, so we can fix that. We're going to click on the airfield option. We're going to select it, and then we're going to press Tab to find the right one, which is this one here, by the looks of it. That is perfect. So some terrain types have 12 cycle cell options, some have 6. It'll completely depend. Let's turn off these map hints. All right. One thing that you'll always want to do is, especially for myself being a cartographer, you want to add a compass. How do you do that? Well, that's a straightforward process. You select the hex where you want the compass to appear, and then you go under Values, you choose Compass, and then you choose the map direction. By default, all of our maps have north at the top, so we'll just select north at the top, press OK, and in certain views, you'll see that the compass will appear. It will not appear in zoomed out modes because it just gets too cluttered and makes it impossible to read anyways. So yeah, in the closer views, you will see it. Is it possible to change the map biome like in CSME? You can set up the biome when you first start a map, but not after the fact, if I recall correctly. Berto will confirm. And let's see what Berto says. John is asking that. Is it possible to change the biome like in CSME? Like I said, I think it is possible to do so at the beginning of a map, but not changing it for an existing map. Okay, so to add a label, super simple. We're going to call this Heartbreak Ridge. And we have different options depending on how we want it to be displayed. Plain is black text, water is blue, forest is green, as you can see here. Red, or special, is red, like these. Typically these are used for military places. And then the border is for special, you know, for example, between a border label between Cambodia and Vietnam, or a provincial border or district border, something like that. You can also change the justification, either left, center, or right, and you can change the size. So let's use the same label, but do a few of the different options so you can see how they work. So we're just going to use the default, the one that come right off the page. We're going to change it to Heartbreak Ridge. Black, left. See what happens. this if I actually do it correctly. There we go. So as you can see, it's a black label. It's left justified by this identifier. And if we don't like it and we want to change it, we just right click and it'll remove it. And we click again, left click, and it'll bring it back up. So let's change it to green because I think that's a prettier color. And center and see how it looks. And there we go. We see that it changed to green and is now centered. Maybe we want it to be bigger. So let's remove it. Let's add it again and change the size to 2. And there we go. As you can see, it's still green and centered, but the label has definitely increased in size. Maybe that's too big, so let's remove it again, add it, reduce it down to 1. So let's add another label. We'll call that Heartbreak Village. Yeah, I know this is the wrong war, but still, it's entertaining. And we're going to change that to black and to 0. Maybe with a right identifier. As you can see, it is now justified to the right, and it is black. Can we? Really? Okay, let's try. I am curious. Where do we do that? So let's get out of label mode. Let's click on that as a default so then I can touch anywhere and not change anything. Let's save our map. And then let's change the biome. Oh, yes, it did change. Oh, we don't want that though. No. That's cool. That's cool with that. You can do that. Let's see if we can do it again. Subtropical rainforest. So every time it needs to reload because it's accessing a different graphic or different graphics. Okay. Huh, that's cool. That's cool. So let's wait for this to finish, go back into it. Open up my scenario map. So we can also, even though we're using a master map modified, we can modify this to anything we want, right? So we can add any type of terrain out here by simply selecting anything from up here and putting it on the map. You can do this in any view. There are some shortcuts as well. So for example, if I wanted to cover a larger area, and for example I want a big beach, I can do one of two things. I can press what can I do here? I think if I hold down the control, yeah. So if I select my top area and then go to the bottom right, hold down the control, select the hex, it'll fill in that entire area. That makes life a lot easier when doing a large map. Just like that. So I can change that to all land, bada boom, or all water, bada boom. And you can also do the same using shift, just by having a hex with the surrounding will change. So just like that, I'm holding down the shift, pressing around, and it fills it in as I wish. Super simple. Just like that. You can add roads, you can add rails. Let's just add some roads. Just like that. And to remove them, you just right click in the same locations and they will be removed. The same for the railway. And you can remove them. as a general rule when map making, you don't want to have the road and railway in the same hex. This will be particularly true with East Front, as there will be trains in East Front. If you have a road and a rail in the same hex, sometimes it buggers up the movement, so it's best to have them separated. Even if they're close enough, just have them separated. Just for movement's sake, that's a wise thing to do. Welcome, Barreled. Ho ho. Hoi hoi, he says. That Boot Camp 2 scenario, boy howdy, was that some learning opportunities in there or what? Yes, absolutely. If you are playing the Boot Camp scenarios, which you highly recommended that you should, it is imperative that you follow the instructions to the T. That's where you're going to gain the most victory points. That's where you will most likely win. But with Boot Camp 2, there's the added pressure of building the fire base with your infantry, as well as setting up defenses, protecting your construction platoon and your engineer platoon, because your construction platoon is the only one that can make trenches, which is, that's just life. And sometimes the die rolls don't go in your favor. Like, for example, my Boot Camp 2 session. I did not get the fire base complete. I did hold off the Viet Cong, though, fortunately, which was great. But I didn't finish the scenario in itself. Therefore, I lost. So I didn't complete the mission. Although I've done that many times where I played that scenario and I've done so. I was able to build IPs faster. I was able to build the trenches faster. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. But generally speaking, you have to follow along. You have to follow the instructions that are given to you within the boot camps. The other scenarios are a little more free-flowing, but the boot camps, they're done like that to teach you what you need to do. So follow the orders. You should get the points. You should have a victory if the rest of the die rolls are in your favor. Back to the map. So this is what we're going to use for our basic scenario. Again, I'm just going through this relatively quickly. If I'm zoomed in, this is one thing that you're going to see in 101. It's a brand new feature that Berto, our genius, has finally implemented. Something that has been long been waiting for. And to do so, let me show you. I just have to remember where it is. Here it is. It is the hex jump dialog. So by pressing Alt X or by accessing it through here, I can go to any particular hex on the key on the map that I want to go to. So let's try that. So I want to go to 25, 25. And poof, there we are. We are there at 25, 25. This is, you can do that in any visual mode, of course. This will be available in the map editor, the scenario editor, and if I recall, also in game. Okay, so one little issue thing is that when you do that, so I'm going to press Alt X, and I'm going to go in, going to select it, press OK. It goes there, but I need to select that hex in order to zoom into that particular hex again. The hex jump is awesome. Barreled says, really love this system and looking forward to the 3.0 update to Middle East. Yes, absolutely. Everything that we've done with Vietnam will be brought into Middle East 3.0. There's a lot of work that needs to get involved or be involved with that. So probably late this year or early next year is when you'll see that. All the scenarios that are included need to be scripted, at least one side, as we've done with Vietnam, the first release. That's a lot of work, a lot of testing, but fantastic. Fantastic. It'll be a whole new game, basically, with the 3.0 update to play it. So, there's also... No, that's not here. Never mind. that's in the scenario editor. I was going to mention about exclusion zones, but we don't have that in this particular editor. So there's another thing. We're going to create a new landmass, just as an example here. So again, using the top left, holding the control, going to the bottom right, we have a nice big new landmass. And there's these features up here, which is not new to the campaign series, but how they work in the campaign series is kind of new. These were in Middle East, but they've been expanded for Vietnam because Vietnam is far more complex than the Middle East was, as terrain-wise. So these are in hex water movement areas. So you have major river, minor river, I think. Yeah, major river, just a general river, plus you have the hex sides. But these are in hex, so you can move through these. So as you can see, you can add them to your map. And then if you hold down the tab button, you can change the atmosphere around that. So let's do that. You can change it to a variety of different things if you want. There's so many options. Just keep doing it. Oh, there's lots of options. I love it. The same with the minor river, which is like so. You'll notice down here that, for example, it is looking towards 3 hex, or going out toward the heavy water in 3 different directions. And if I only wanted to go out to 1, I can use this here to say this is what? The water block. The water block option will allow you to click on that hex side and it'll remove that. So you can't take your water and go that way, you have to go straight through. It just looks visually more appealing. And the same. You will want to use a combination depending on the area, just to have it visually better. So water block in there, so it's a minor stream for there. So with this, you can move your water transport units here, and you can unload into any of these hexes that are beside it. Also, you can create a bridge across these, as you would just by laying a road across it, and a new bridge will appear. You'll notice that the bridge has been reduced depending on the type of waterway that's being crossed. So let's see. This is larger, but if we're crossing a larger body of water like this, you will see the traditional 3 span. So yeah, it's a little detail, but it's the details that make it pretty. Beryl says, took advantage of the 50% sale to pick up ME and use my 38 longevity coupon to Matrix grab Vietnam. Oh, that's a good for you. That's awesome. So yeah, very cool little features in here. You can also do hex sides. So here we are adding some rivers and some minor rivers. Now to join these rivers to the waterside hex, or to these in hex rivers, you'll select this option here, which is the join, and you'll want to select the right side of your join, and it'll bring the water right to there. So it looks clean, looks wonderful. Same for there, if you want to use there. So you can see how they're joined now. Let's turn on some hex outlines so it is easier. Options, hex outlines. There we go. So you can see where the hexes are, and you'll see where the hex join is. You can see under map hints where those joins are, so you can tell by the color. These are the water blocks that we've added there, and then the joins are there and there for shallow, light blue, deep river for the dark blue. All right, now let's remove these, and let's get rid of that There's no fast undo. You have to manually go about and right-click these particular things to get rid of them. So you'll see that the elements are still there. You'll want to remove them if you can, just to prevent any other issues, which I'm doing here. There we go. Display map hints off. We can put our labels back on. We have our compass rose. It's always a good habit to get into. Just click on this button so you're not going to put down something by accident, which I have a bad tendency to do. But again, for smaller maps, you have this undo feature, so you can undo something if you want. For, again, maps over 500 by 500 hexes, this option will no longer be available. And that's just to keep the memory low. That's all. All right. Do you have any questions about the map editor? Because I'm in it. I'm happy to help you. If not, I'll continue to the org editor and we'll build a small org file. All right, going once, going twice, sold. Let's go to the org file. Can you flip the map in the editor? You know, that's a good question. Can you? Display, flip the map. Yes, you can. Look at that. Alt F. So that's one way, and then Alt F. So notice I am rotating it 180 degrees. And that works for all zoom levels, of course. Now, the orientation will still be the same. North is still at the quote-unquote top. So even though the map is flipped, north is still down here. Now it's up there. So as you'll tell by the compass rose, it stays the same. So north is still down at the bottom when it's rotated. North is still at the top when it's rotated. There is a section in the manual that talks about maps and goes into more detail about standards and whatnot. I recommend giving it a whirl. Again, I will do more in-depth videos later on that will go through this in detail. But yeah, this is just a brief overview to show, hey, we have editors and there's things that you can do with them. Let me show you how to make a new map. So let's go File, let's exit, and then let's open it up again. And this time, to make a new map, we're going to cancel. And that'll open up the dialog for creating a new map. Here's the region dialog. We're going to select, there's two options, East Asia, Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia is the more South Vietnam, where East Asia will be more Korea. Don't tell anyone. Shh. And then you have different biomes: temperate forest, tropical rainforest, subtropical forest. Not all the terrain in Vietnam is the same, so we provide different options depending on where you are within the country. Just use the default. Here's where you can set the size of your map. Let's go 25 by 25. So if I decide I'm making my map, and I decide, oh, I wish I had more space over here. So here, I'm going to fill these in with water. And then we're going to do some modifications just to show you that there is flexibility. So I realized, oh, okay, I want to have more space over here, so we can do that. We can go extent, resize, and we're going to change the width to 40, for example. This adds these new hexes for you. But let's undo that. Let's say I wanted to say, oh, I needed more space over here on the left-hand side. Well, you can do the same thing. So, as I showed you before, we'll go extent. So say, yeah, we'll resize it. We'll add our additional hexes. They show up by default on the right-hand side, but using the extent shift, we can change it and we can move what we've done already over a bit if we want. So 0y means I'm not shifting it down, up or down, but 10, plus 10 means that it's going to be shifted to the right, as you can see here. So therefore, I just moved what we had done previously over to the right by 10 hexes. And the same if I want to move it down, we can just extend, resize, leave the width the same that it is. We can adjust the height. And then we can use the shift, extent shift. We're going to leave it at 0 for the X area as well, and change this to 10. And we see that our main map has now shifted down, which is great. That's what we wanted. So now we can add more things in here, etc. Super simple. There's so much you can do with this. There's also a grid option, map grid, and you can change the size of the grid. Right now this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So where do you change the options? Maps, there we go. 5 kilometers. So these are 20 by 20, which is great if you have a topographic map that you're using as a base, or 2 kilometer grids, just like so, or 1 kilometer grid, which most NTS maps are. Super simple. You can show the coordinates as usual, where things are. You can show the elevations, and there are 50 elevations now within the Campaign Series Vietnam game, which is particularly important around Dak To and the DMZ. There is some limitations graphically though, so things to keep in mind is that even though there are 50 elevations, you want to make sure that your graphics are, let's just add some graphics in here. Let's add some land, fill that in, and then let's add, oops. So you'll see when in 3D, your limitations for graphics is going to be 3 hexes, or sorry, 3 elevation differences. You can set whatever you want these values to be for the elevations. Your base is 0, or you can make it a base of 500, but your delta is defaulting to 25. So that means from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 is a 25-meter difference throughout the map. For movement-wise, when you're designing your scenario, anything greater than 50 will have vehicular movements unable to move, with the exception of helicopters because they can fly over everything. But land-based vehicles like trucks or tanks or anything like that, keep that in mind. So when you're building a road, so this in this case that's 75, that means that a vehicle trying to go up this slope would not work. So you need to have it like so. You need to have at least a 50, only maximum 50, in which that is right here. So that has an elevation of 2. That has a delta of 25 down, or 0 here. 2 means that it's 50, which means the vehicles can go up here, and then another 25 to 75. So yeah, you need to have a slope for your vehicles to go up and down. What happens if you add something crazy like a higher elevation is that the graphics no longer function together. So maximum that you want to have is 3 per change. So in this case, you'd go 6. Now disregard what I'm doing in the back. This is just an example. go 6. And then you'll go 9. And then you'll go 12. So notice that there's a graphical glitch there and there. So to remedy that, you just add the proper elevations and that will fix that. There we go. And then if you want, you can add some jungle or forest or whatever, just like that. Again, everything you can do in 3D, you can do in 2D. So because of the extent and the amount of elevations that we have within the campaign series, the way that you see the change will be more prominent in lower elevations and much more less differentiation in the higher elevations. That's the color palette that we have. With 50, there's only so many colors that we could use and still have it nice looking. All right, any other questions? Yes, I covered the map labels, Berto. Also the new border types. Yeah, let me show you the border labels just for giggles. So let's turn on some labels. Let's pretend that there's a border. And we're going to click on that. And let's add a label. And boom. So it defaults right in the center of the hex. And it'll continue to do so as you go along. Let me just turn off the elevations so you can see them. They are defaulted to black. I can't change that color, but at least you have the option there to show. This is particularly useful in the scenario editor. There's something called exclusion zones, and this is a good way to identify where those exclusion zones are. Actually, for giggles, let's cancel this. Let's go into our map that we had been creating already, and let's add a little area that will be necessary for showing the exclusion zones. So let's just say this area down here is going to be an area that one side or the other is not allowed to go into. So let's add our borders here. A border, we're going to use our plus symbol, and we're going to have it so that this is a no-go zone. And that'll be just to show it off in the scenario editor. Rivers crossing multiple elevations. All right, let's do that. John is asking to see rivers crossing multiple elevations. So let's add a little block of island. Let's add some elevation. Let's add some more elevation. All right, so let's add a river in Hex River and how it goes through the different. There you go. You see, if you zoom in, you can see that now there are, I guess, waterfalls where the hex changes. That's kind of cool. Looks prettier. So boats can still go up and down. Keep in mind that these aren't, it's more a visual thing. It's not the way that contours work and how the land slopes. They're not actual waterfall areas, if that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, let me know and I can explain. Okay, let's remove that little bit of area. Add the water. Control, cover that. Change the elevation to 0. There we go. So if I recall correctly, everything is happy. Turn our map hints on. There's nothing there. Perfect. There we go. Let's go to the organizational editor. Again, you can access these all through the main menu, as I showed. I should explain something. So when you open the organizational editor, there's a note. It says, please be patient, expect a delay. There's a lot of data that is included with the organizational editor. There's so much data. It takes a long time to build, and therefore it takes a long time to open up to see everything properly. So depending on your machine, sometimes it'll be fast, sometimes it'll be slow. For me, it's not too bad, but it will take a couple of seconds. You might not think something is happening, but it is loading in the background. As you can see, there, it took about 15 seconds for it to load on my machine, and my machine's pretty decent. So here's the organizational editor. This would allow you to build the org file that is necessary for you to build a scenario. You can open existing ones. You'll see that they're all located in the scenarios folder. They're all in here. But we're not going to do that. We are going to, again, we don't want to be touching these. We can use them as a base. There's ways of doing that. I'll show you how. First thing we're going to do is we're going to save a new file. And we're going to call it the same name as our map file, my scenario. That'll be important for keeping all your files together when we are going into the scenario editor. So we now have our own brand new file. It's empty. We can do whatever we want in it. You'll see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 nations included within Campaign Series Vietnam. And they will span the entirety of 1948 to 1967. So you can select any nation that you want to play with and open up, see what kind of platoons that it has. These provide you the name and the special, capabilities of these particular units. So, for example, you have an M24 Chaffee. It's tracked. It can't cross light bridges. It can carry riders. It's a hard target. It uses the hard AI to fire and the soft AI to fire. It has the capabilities of the recon AI, retreat AI, blah, blah, blah. Whole bunch of really cool stuff. You can read more about those things in the manual. There are structures. Everything is organized into structures. For example, division is organized. Here's what 1st Division looked like in 1967 or 1960, I guess, but it hadn't changed, so therefore it's still the same. These are the various different regions. Are these perfect? No, but based on the research that I've had, I've tried to make them as detailed as possible. As with the game, it is a living game, so as I come up with more information or am told about more information, I will update these as I can to make them more current. For example, in the US, under the divisions, for example, I have a lot of generic divisions as the units had changed, for example, how they were structured under Road, how they were structured in Vietnam, etc. But I also include how the division was organized in 1966 with the different brigades, how those brigades were organized, etc. But I know I have a lot of upgrading to do with the Americans to be Cold War ready. I have the information, I just ran out of time to put it all together. That includes France. If you're familiar with Campaign Series Middle East, France got a huge overhaul, and it is really good to go. All the way up to the army level, different areas. It's an impressive order of battle for that stuff. Things will change. You can select the year that you want to fight in. For example, let's go to 1951. and the available companies, battalions, regiments, and whatnot will change accordingly. Keep in mind that's changing the data, so it will take a while. So these are the type of organization for the French that you would see and made available up to 1951, up to June 1951. That being the case, these will be the same platoons that will be available in 1951. Same for the South Vietnamese. These are the platoons that are available in 1951. These are the companies that were available and the style in 1951. Battalions, same difference. Regiments, brigades if they had any, which they didn't. Some in 1951, they were still commanded by the French at this time. But if we change this, now watch, we're going to change this to 1962 and see how this changes. So you'll notice that now the divisional structure of the South Vietnamese Army has been changed to include the divisions that were available at that particular time and how they were structured. All the way down to the platoon level, so you can see. We've also included some U.S. advisors. One thing that we don't do in this game is include historical names. That's out of respect, and many people are still alive. So we do have a leader or a commander. It'll typically be identified by the unit that it is commanding. So in this case, it is commanding the 49th Infantry Regiment, so it has a label of 49th Infantry Regiment. Barreled asks or mentions, the only issue I have so far is that if I let the screen go to sleep when I wake up, the game map is all white. I can get report boxes and such to show back up, but I cannot get the map and units to display again. I have to exit and restart it. Yeah, I have that same problem. I don't know how to fix that at all. Maybe Berto has a suggestion. I run into that a lot because I'm typically working on maps or scenarios to the wee hours of the night, and I go to bed. Then when I come back in the morning, it's all white. I have to save and restart. So let's choose let's just choose 1962 for our scenario. We're gonna pick how about this infantry regiment. We're gonna slide that over to the organization. So right now, all I did was select this unit, press this button, which means add the unit, and it adds it to our organization. So we now have the 49th Infantry Regiment as part of the organization for my scenario, which is great. That's perfect. So with this, so there's a text file that still adds names. I don't like them. I will remove them. You can adjust quite a few different things. For example, I want to give this advisor a higher morale, and you can do so by selecting this button here, change morale. The default morale for this particular regiment is 4. I don't want my U.S. advisor to have a morale of 4. I think it should have a morale of 8. So I can change it to 8, and you'll see that it changes to 8, whereas the other ones, by default, are 4. We can also, for example, let's take a look what kind of toys that we have. Maybe we want to add a toy. So in here, you can see the various companies that we have, and they're broken down by when they first came available. If they're still available in 1962, they will still be listed. The latest organizations will be under the 1962 heading. So all these are up to that point in 1962. These are the changes that had come along with these particular structures. So they were experimenting with these type of units. So let's add one of these particular units. And all we do to our existing structure, we're going to select it, add it, Now, you'll see that it comes into an organization by itself, but we want it to be included in this regiment for command and control purposes. So to do so, we select it and choose this button here to lower the organization, and it puts it underneath this particular regiment. So now, command and control wise, this cavalry squadron will be looking for this regiment to gain supply. So basically we're attaching this. John is asking, any plans for the future DLC to add generic Pro East, Pro West like in CSME? Yeah, probably, eventually. I don't know when that's going to come. That's a lot of work. But yeah, for sure. We can also change the morale of this by selecting that, changing the morale to whatever you think is appropriate. Morale is important for assaults and defending, so I would try and do so wisely. But I also try and keep things historical. So if I know that a particular infantry company, based on my readings, perform better than other infantry companies within the same battalion, I might increase its morale. Or change the unit, for example. These are Class B units, which means they're just normal units. But if I wanted to change a particular company to an A-class company, I would go over here, find what that is, Infantry Company 62. Infantry Company 62. So this is the one that is defaulted within that particular battalion. But if I want to change that first company to an A company, I'd select it, add it, bring it over, and then put it under the same organization by using this button here, lower the org, move it up into that battalion using these buttons, and then again lower the org. It's now underneath this battalion headquarters, and I'm going to move it up, rename it to first company, and notice that is an A class unit now. These are A platoons. That gives me some usually higher morale, lower firing cost, lower the load unload costs, better attack values, better assault values, etc. Just generally they're better veteran units. So since we have the first company there already, we're going to just remove that. We don't need it anymore. So do so. I'm going to select it and remove the org by pressing this button here. Is it okay to delete this? Yes, it is. And poof, you'll see that it was gone. It disappeared. So now we have our company. One is an A class unit and two B class units. We have an attached armored cavalry squadron, which is kind of cool. If you decide to build your own, which you can simply do, one thing to keep in mind is that you need to have the headquarters, the individual headquarters, at the top of the organization. So to show you what I mean, let's grab anything, doesn't matter what it is. So we brought in an infantry battalion, but we're going to strip out everything in it. Doesn't matter. We're going to just nuke it all, and we're going to build our own unit. Say we're building a task force, and we're going to call it a task force. So let's change the name by selecting it, rename, task force test. So this is a battalion structure that has no units in it right now. So let's start populating it with units. First thing we need is a headquarters. Let's find our headquarters. We have a variety of different headquarters to choose from. This is a battalion-sized task force, so let's grab a battalion task force. Let's say it's going to be a ranger task force. Why not? So we select it, add it over to our org area, move it under the proper thing, which is the task force test here. It is now in the top location where it needs to be in order to provide command control for the rest of the units. Now, let's add a couple of ranger companies. Let's add a couple of ranger companies. Rangers are awesome, so let's make them A. So we're going to add those. So right now, these two Ranger companies are within this task force, and they're commanded by that particular Ranger battalion. Let's make this useful. We're going to call them 1st and 2nd Ranger Company. If I want to change the morale of everything, I can select it and then change the morale to, say, 7. But, oh, wait, let's call that 2nd. I think the 2nd Ranger Company is a really awesome company, so let's make it a morale of 9. Whereas this one is still a morale of 7, because we changed the organization for all of that. Let's add some tanks, because I can. Again, we can change the morale to whatever we want. It's experimental, they don't know what they're doing yet, so morale 5 is fine. So each of these units will have a different morale within them. Let's add a leader. Let's go up to the platoons. Let's scroll down to find a leader. Where are the leaders? Here are the leaders. There's a Ranger commander. Okay, let's add him. He doesn't have a name, so let's call him Task Force Test. And we're going to put him underneath the headquarters. Right now he has a command capability of 1, but we can change that by pressing the C3 button here. And we can change that to 2, to 3, to 4, to 5. So that means this value will impact the attack values of, or fire values of any unit underneath if they're in the same hex. This also affects the range. So if the Ranger commander is with the Ranger battalion, it'll increase the range based on the command value. The 50% range for command and control. So let's just make it 2. There we go. Let's say a company had another platoon in it for whatever reason. It was over strength. So let's find a Ranger platoon and add it. There we go. You'll notice now that before it didn't include, it was just an unknown unit. And now it has the name, which makes life so much easier when designing scenarios. So we will rename that to 4th Platoon. We can drop the rest of it here. We don't need that, just deleting it. And then we'll put this organization underneath the 49th Regiment by selecting it and moving it underneath. We don't need to have these extra units in here, so let's pull out the 2nd Battalion and the 3rd Battalion. So now our regiment only consists of this particular grouping. Let's save it. And now, so we're going to consider that done. Again, this is just going to be a simple overview. So the ARVN is done. So who are they going to fight against? We can fight against anyone, but let's go the Viet-Cong. And there's a whole bunch of different options here. We can add, let's see. So why does it say 56 and 61? Because in 1961, there was something within this VC battalion had changed. In this case, these particular units are armed now with SKS rifles. So, which is identified by here, which is an improvement over the rifles that they had back in 1956. So I'm going to use the latest one. We're going to say that they're a main force battalion. They're pretty awesome. So we'll add that. To keep it simple, we're only going to add just this particular unit. It comes with reconnaissance, engineers or sappers, some logistics, additional fire support, and then a standard company with 3 platoons and some supporting weapons. It also has a battalion HQ. Notice it's at the top. We can add a leader if we want by going under the platoons, scrolling down, finding a VC commander, adding him, and we'll just call it VC Force Commander. And we're going to add him underneath the headquarters. The default morale for the organization is 6. I think that's fine. We will make the commander a little bit better. We'll say he's 8. And that's pretty much generally all we need to do for that. So if you wanted to use an organization from one of the other scenarios, what you can do is do this. I'm going to open up a second instance just so you can see. This is going to be for my scenario. That's fine. Any questions so far? Any thoughts? Any comments? Happy to help. That's what I'm here for. So I'm going to save this as a quick test, append test. So if I found a scenario that I liked and it had a good organization, I can choose File, Append, and I can go in and I can grab that organization just by selecting it and opening it, and it'll take in all those units from that scenario file. So in this case, it's a fairly substantial file. There's lots of stuff in it. Additionally, or alternatively, let's not save that. Let's open it up again. If I want to create my own special units that I will intend on using over and over and over again, but I don't want to mess with the order of battle files that are included in the game, what you can do is you can build your own structure. So let's do something similar. Let's say I have a battalion that I want that's going to be my own special battalion that I will be using over and over and over again. We're going to say it's a standard motorized infantry company, but it will always have, say, it'll always have a motorized engineer company attached to it. This is something that I'm going to add in all my scenarios, so this is something that I should have frequently. So I'll save this as a new file. And we're going to call it something that's useful to identify. So let's call it AA Arvin Motorized Battalion with engineers. Obviously you can make it simpler than that, but this is just getting the point across. So I've now saved this new structure, as a separate org file. Now, the usefulness of that is that now I can go File, Append, and boom, there it is. Simple as that. I don't have to keep rebuilding it over and over again. I can simply add it to my file, and now it's there. Sweet and simple. So if you had a folder of these custom organizations, you could use them over and over and over again, depending on how you're doing your scenario design. Okay, I think that's the main points that I wanted to get across here. Any other questions regarding the organizational editor? If not, we'll move on to the scenario editor. I didn't realize we're already an hour and 15 minutes in. That's crazy. Time just flies. Hit F2. Berto says hit F2. Aha. I didn't realize you can do that in this. So, if I want to see more information on a unit, how cool is that? Thanks, Berto, for the reminder. I want to see more information on a particular unit. I can now select the unit and press F2. Oh, why not? I probably have to be in this mode. Yeah, there we go. And then press F2. Why is that not working? Sorry. Ha! I was in the wrong part. I have to be on the left side, not the right side. So there we go. Let me try to do that again. So on the left side, not the right side, find your platoon that you want to see, and then press F2, and you get the same display that you would see within the game itself. So for those that were interested about modding the game to have the vehicle pictures, you can do so. The vehicle picture will show up here, just as an FYI. I don't know the standard sizes off the top of my head, but if you go to the forum, they will probably be there. Thanks, Berto. I totally forgot about that. That is awesome. Yeah, that's super handy, because if I want to see information, pressing F2, selecting it, bada boom, then I can find out. So it won't tell you the movement costs on these things because every scenario is different, which makes sense totally. This is just a generic thing. This tells you the most important information. What is the strength points? How much is it worth? What does it assault at? What does it defend at? How much does it cost to fire? Etc. There isn't a way to compare units, so I can't show you the difference between a and B unless I go and do this, which I will do so. So we have a A-class infantry platoon selected. I'm going to press F2. As you can see, here are the stats for loading cost, speed, blah, blah, blah. If I choose next unit, oh, never mind. Nope, can't do it. But I can select the next unit and do the same thing. And it'll tell you the stats. Sorry, next unit doesn't work. That's only in the game. It's a limited function, but still something that wasn't there before, and that's handy. Yeah, Berto said to limit the bloat of the organizational editor, which makes sense. Keeping it simple, but still keeping it useful. Okay. Berto is saying that the org editor is now much richer, busier affair. The old org editor was a lot of blank screen and boring. Yeah, there is much more to display now, and it is far more useful than before, which is great. And it's still simple to use, which is awesome. Now for the fun part. Let's go into the organizational editor. So again, it defaults to allow you to pick an existing scenario. It is recommended that if you're going to choose, actually let's do this because this was a question that I had in an email. I'm going to select a particular scenario, I'm going to open it, and then I'm going to resave it as something new. And the process that I'm doing now will show you how to do that. So I've opened a scenario, I'm going to save it as something else, because I like the scenario, but I want to make some of my own personal tweaks. For example, renaming a scenario. So I've renamed the scenario, and I'm gonna change the prefix so we can find it easier in the name list. So there we go. Renaming a scenario. Now, before I do anything else, what I want to do is go into the header, scenario header, and rename this. Renaming a scenario. This is a reminder that if I've adjusted the objective values, that there's other things that I need to look at, which I will go over later. But this is just a quick example. So we have a new scenario that we created based on an existing one, which is Boot Camp 1. And now we should be able to find that within the launcher. Let's take a look. 1 second. Start a new game, and there we go. You'll see that it is now listed our new scenario that we just modified. It's the same as Boot Camp 1, but we just renamed it to a new file name, as shown here, and we renamed the title. So if you want to take an existing scenario and modify it, that's how you do it. That will leave the existing scenario alone and allow you to modify the scenario file by itself. Now, you won't be able to edit you can edit the map file. It is more challenging to edit the org file with an existing scenario. I will explain that in a future video. This is again a simple thing. Okay, so we're going to create a new file based on the files that we've created today. So we don't have an existing file because we're building a brand new one. So we're going to press cancel. And now it's asking us to choose the map. So I'm going to sort by date modified. I'm going to select my scenario map. I'm going to open and do the same for my scenario org file, which is asking for now. And with those two files, it's going to generate the scenario file. So my scenario, and we're going to say it's only 10 turns with a visibility for the 10 turns. So you need to make sure that this matches this. But there's a lot of flexibility within here. For example, if I want to make it the first 5 turns day, change that to 1 to 5, and then change this to 6 to 10 to night. Then it'll play the first 5 turns as day, the next 5 turns as night. Or I can go change that from 1 to 2. Those 2 turns will be day. 3 to 5 will be night, and then 6 to 10 will be day again. I mean, obviously that's very short days and night, but just to emphasize the point. Regardless, you want to make sure that the amount of turns that you're offering matches the visibility. Now, if I was using this example, I would change the visibility for the days to, say, 6 hexes. And then for the night, I would change it to 1 hex. And then for the day, I would change it to 6 hexes again. Or you can change this on a turn-by-turn basis if you want. So, say for turn 6, I only want it to be 6 range visibility. But for turn 7 to 10, I want to change it to 8 hexes, for example. These should correspond to these, just for simplicity's sake. But again, you can just have it as day, and then with 1 visibility. So 1 to 10 with a 5 range visibility. Or let's just make it a little more complicated. Let's go to 4 or 5, 4. Change that for half the turn, then the rest of the turn. So turns 1 to 5, it'll be visibility 4. Turn 6 to 10, it'll be visibility 5. We didn't add any airstrikes. We'll worry about that in a future video. You can change the ammo level just by highlighting the text that you want to change. We can change that to 90. We can change that to 0. We can change that to 25, whatever you want. Top side is side A. At the bottom is side B. You can add as many flares as you want. You can add 50, you can add 100, you can add 1, you can add whatever. If you're playing at night, flares are handy. You can add 0. The same for smoke. You can change this to any value that you want. In this case, we're not going to add any just for simplicity's sake. I usually have a default for setting these major and minor defeats. You will do so by... This is just the default because you need to be able to test the scenario in order to find out what these levels are actually going to be. So you can even leave those as 0 for now if you want until you've actually tested your scenario. I just use something in there simply as a default. Yes, so that is the reminder that I was talking about before. If this is a new edit, and then if the turns have changed for each objective, remember to review and if necessary change the objective values. I'll show you an example of that. So our ground conditions, we're going to leave everything as normal, but you can change these as you wish depending on what you're doing. For Vietnam, while the snow options are there, I don't think they're ready. So yeah, no, maybe they are. But again, as Vietnam, you're not going to find snow, so that's all right. Let's add my name. Of course, you can put whatever you want in there. This, on the other hand, you have to, there's a specific formula to follow, and I'll show you. 1962. So it's the day of the month, then the month, comma, the year. This is my scenario. Although I can't type, apparently. This is where you're going to fill in the historical briefing of the scenario. Where, you know, where, how did we get to this particular point in history where this scenario is going to be plausible? Come to Ohio if I want snow. Oh, I already have snow outside. So yeah, if you don't follow this date, it will flag an error for you. I don't even know what that error will be like, but here, let's copy and paste it and try something different. February 10, 1977. Yeah, so it says it's an error. So as it shows, here's an example. That is the format that it must be in. So let's put our format back. That's the proper format. There we go. So then it loads your map plus your org file into the scenario editor. Of course, before we do anything, we're going to save our file. We're going to save as, and we're going to keep consistent, and we're just going to call it my scenario. So let's turn on the labels. You'll see that we have our exclusion zone labels there. And we're going to add, where is it? Add the exclusion zones right now. Right now, everything is defaulted to, it doesn't matter. Anyone can go anywhere, that's super dandy. But if we want to say that the only side B units can go in here, we can change that by selecting a hex and pressing the tab. Here, let's choose a better location. So I've changed that from NA to A. A means that side A cannot go into that hex. And let's do that all the way along. So now there's a buffer. That means that no matter what, side A cannot go past these hexes. Of course, if I want them to not be available in the entire peninsula, I would change everywhere, of course. Which I can use the shift. I can use the other tools as well, just to, oops, you have to be careful sometimes that, so you can choose it for A side, you can choose it for B side, you can choose it for both sides for whatever reason. This is water, we don't care, anyone can go there. So we have, so this means that nowhere on this peninsula will side A players go. There is an exception to that though, and that exception is that if there are special forces, like LLRPs, as well as special forces, or there's something else that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But anyways, special forces can typically move into the excluded zones. You can fly over the excluded zones, but you just can't land in the excluded zones unless you have a special forces unit. This is really cool. This is super handy, but for border areas, for border type scenarios, where you want to have the North Vietnamese coming into Vietnam and then being able to retreat into their safe haven of, say, Cambodia or Laos or something like that without being pursued by the American ground forces, although they can still be attacked by air forces. Keep that in mind. But that's a cool little new feature. That's fantastic. I love it for scenario design. Okay, we don't care about that anymore. Let's turn that off. So, what do we want to do? We want to add some objectives. You do so by selecting the objective button, choosing your location, and then choosing the ownership of that. So we'll say that these are North Vietnamese objectives, and let's say it has a value of 1. So right now, in this case, that's a North Vietnamese objective. It is worth 1 to both sides. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want that to be worth something else. So I've selected it. I'm going to press the objective button, and I'm going to change this to this. Now, what does that mean? That means that for side A, that objective value is worth 1. But for side B, that objective value is going to be worth 2 throughout the entire scenario. Okay, that's cool. But say I only want that to happen in the beginning of the scenario, and I want it to be worth nothing later. Oh, okay. Well, we can do that too. And we can do that by doing this. So we're going to select our turns, and we're going to put some brackets around our values. So through turns 1 through 5, that objective is going to be worth 1 for side A and 2 for side B. But through turns 6 through 10, oops, if I type it correctly, we're going to change it so that it's worth 3 for side A, but it's not worth anything anymore for side B, for whatever reason. Bada boom. So if we look at that again, we'll see that it is now set that way. So as the turns progress, the value of that particular objective will change, which is great. There's so many opportunities that you can do with that. Now, that warning that we saw before, if I was to change this to 11 turns, for example, this is where that comes into play. So, if there's a new edit, and if the turns have been changed, which they have, for each objective, remember to review, and if necessary, change the objective value accordingly. So yes, this is where you need to fix that. There is 10 turns, now 11 turns in the scenario, but this is only flagging 11. I need to change that or it'll cause an error in the scenario. There we go. So yeah, Berto mentions one thing. In this case, so for turns 1 through 5, every time side A is holding this particular objective, it gains 1 point. Or if the Vietnamese are holding this, then they gain 2 points per turn. If this was only as this, for example, then that is worth 1 totally, period. That's it. Not per turn, just 1 period, or 100, or 1,000, or whatever you want to make it. It is where you add in the turns that it starts becoming accrued, if that makes sense. What would happen if, for the scenario, we change to side B moving first? Would the objectives change with it, or do you have to manually change them? I think if I recall correctly, it still recognizes this as side A, and this is side B, regardless of who goes first. Berto will confirm that, though. Thanks, Tactician. I appreciate that, and thank you for joining. Yeah, exactly. So this is always A, this is always B, regardless who goes first. That is confirmed by Berto. Okay. So let's add another objective. We'll say it's North Vietnamese. We'll just have the same little things there. Let's add some over here. North Vietnamese. Copy and paste. North Vietnamese. Right now they're just randomly selected. Just to show you how it works. So now we have 4 objectives on this map, which is cool. We're going to save it. No sense redoing things if we don't have to. Now let's add some units. So let's say that we have a VC company. You do so by going into the Forces dialog here, selecting your unit, and then right-clicking on the map where you want that unit to be. So you'll see when I lay down the unit, it orientates itself to the north. But you can change that just by pressing the arrow keys on your keyboard, and you can rotate it however which way you want. Keep in mind how you had it rotated last is where your next unit, the same facing, will happen. So you select the unit, and you'll see that it's in the same direction, which is handy for larger scenarios. You'll want to include a battalion HQ, maybe even a commander. We'll put down the rest of the company, like so. I get in the habit of saving all the time, just because I've lost, for whatever reason, things altogether. You can't change the bases in this. They are defaulted to this in the editor. All the fancy stuff is just in the game. These are just for quick viewing. There we go. And then we will have, let's have part of our task force, our Ranger Battalion task force. They will be, say they're hanging up at the airfield. Plot down our headquarters, selecting it, right-clicking on the map where we want it to go. We'll throw a couple of platoons in there, and let's add part of our Armored Cavalry Regiment Reconnaissance Squadron there. We'll throw in an Armored Cars platoon, maybe M114, and we'll call that enough. So again, I'm not gonna make an entire scenario here, but this is just to show you how to throw things on the map. If you want to move something, say I plotted something and it's like, I don't like where I put that, you can move it by selecting it, pressing the move arrow button here, and then just dragging it around wherever you want to put it. And again, you can change the facing, put it on the road, change the facing on the road, like that. Same with the units. Also, if I wanted to reduce the amount of armored cars I have, right now there's 5 armored cars in this particular platoon, but based on what I had read, there was only 2 vehicles available, so I can press this reduce strength, and it'll reduce it down to 2 by pressing it 3 times. So now in this scenario, there'll only be 2 vehicles within this platoon, for example. Also, if I wanted to change the morale, right now it's 7, but say, who knows why, they were having a bad day, so their morale is only 3. They're kind of annoyed that they have to be back and doing their stuff. So they're going to start off the scenario with a morale 3. This will increase throughout the scenario. Again, there's no way to permanently set it as 3 unless you do it in the organizational editor, as I showed you. We can also say that on the first turn, we only want this unit to start off with 25 action points, we'll say. So you click on these, plus or minus, and it tells you what the action points are. There's 20. I want 5 more. So there we go. It reduces it by 5 every time. So you can do that for all your units if you want. Change it to 25. Or whatever value that you want. It could be 50, it could be 100, it could be 75, just depending on how you want the first turn to play. Again, you can select a unit and go to the unit handbook. And now, because we're in the scenario editor, you get more information about movement, which is useful because it's scenario based, right? So we know that what the ground conditions are, we know what the weather's like, etc. We know now what the movement capabilities are going to be. All right. Simple as that. What else? So you can have fixed units as well. If you don't want them to move throughout the scenario, you can highlight them and then fix them. So now, unless you release them, these units will not be able to move throughout the scenario. Okay, so maybe I want to release them. How do I do so? Well, we go to Settings, Add a Release, and then you find the units that are going to be released. You can have it so that these units are released at 100% probability on any turn within the scenario. So if I want to say on turn 5, they're going to be released 100% of the time, you would leave it like that. If you wanted to have it so that it's on turn 6, but you have a 50% chance of being released, then you would do exactly as I'm showing. This might take some experimentation depending on the scenario that you're designing. But yeah, that's how you would do it. Change it to the probability that you want or the turn that you want. In some cases, you'll notice that in the game itself, some scenarios will have, high values like 995 in a 10 or 11 turn scenario. That doesn't make any sense. But those are going to be releases that are done via the Lua scripting. So there's an event that needs to happen in order for those units to become released. If they never become released, then the event never happened. So either you didn't get enough casualties, or you didn't secure an objective, or a plethora of other reasons. But yeah, if you see that in your scenario and wondering why, that's why. It's because that is a Lua thing. Otherwise, you want to keep the range within the game itself, the amount of turns itself. So in this particular scenario, we set it up to have 11 turns. Therefore, we're setting it up to be, releasing on turn 5. There's 75% chance that this will happen for this unit. So we're going to press OK. We're going to do the same thing for the leader. We'll do 5, 75. And so be it. You'll notice that there are 2 different options now. So the headquarters is now on turn 5, 75%, and turn 5 for the commander. But if I wanted to have an additional one that says if they haven't both been released by turn 7, then I want 100% both of them released, we can do that. So we go in, again, Settings, Add the Release, and then we're going to select the entire unit, and then turn 7, it's 100%, and OK. So to review, we set it so turn 5, there's a 75% chance the headquarters will release. Turn 5, there's a 75% chance the main force commander is going to release. But if neither of them have been released by turn 7, there's a 100% chance that they will release on that turn. Just review the chat. I can't wait to add scenarios from Lock and Load Publishing, Tactical Heroes of the Nom. Thanks for coming, John. Thank you. All right, so there's that. And you can do the same thing with reinforcements as well. So let's say let's say that the third platoon was airlifted in, or comes in by parachute. So we're going to add that where we want it to land. It's going to land at the airfield. So we've added that. We're going to add him as a reinforcement. We do so by going Settings, Add Reinforcements. So here is where you'll see the reinforcement dialog. And we're going to say on turn 5, there's a 100% chanceability or probability that he's going to come in. And this is the entry hex. We're not going to have him scatter, although we can. If we have him scatter 1 hex, it'll go into any of these hexes. 2 hexes, any of these hexes. 3 hexes, and so on. In this case, we want it to be a paratrooper. He's gonna drop down from an aircraft, and he'll come in on turn 5. We can review that by going to View, Delete Reinforcements, and we can see that it is a para. He's going to be on turn 5, 100%, and it's that Ranger platoon. But if we want to modify that, we can do so. We can say, let's make it turn 6, and let's make it 80%, and let's add a scatter. I don't like the entry hex, so we can change that as well. But we're just going to leave that here. But you can change that if you want. So as you see, it's been modified to turn 6, 80%. It's still para because we didn't change that, and we didn't change the location. So, okay. With the view releases, you can't modify those. You will have to literally delete them. Keep that in mind. If we get into the Lua scripting, there are issues with that because every time you add a new release, it does create a new number, and that number is important in Lua scripting. There we go. We're going to save it again. So we have a handful of objectives. We have 2 sides. This is a basic scenario. At this point, having these values for defeat and victory they wouldn't make any sense. There's no way that any unit is going to get, or any side is going to get 400 points when there's only a handful of points available on the map, and the amount of unit or losses that one can acquire, even if they destroyed everything, is going to be nowhere near 400 points. So things like that are things that you want to be considering when you're building your scenario, or you're valuing your objectives, or etc. Of course, you can change the value with the Lua scripting. So if I want to have an event that says, hey, I captured these 2 locations, my units have held them for X amount of turns, I'm going to be handsomely rewarded for that. I've captured the town, I deserve to be rewarded, I'm going to give you 300 points for doing that. You can do that within the scripting. Let's see. If you want, you can also add some rubble. Say the town is having a bad day and it has been destroyed, or you can remove it. You can also add some wrecks. So wrecks will impede movement. They will also impede visibility if you have enough of them. And if it's a night scenario, they will provide visibility also if you have enough of them, in those particular hexes only. Now, one really cool thing that is new is the ability to hide minefields or blocks or anything of that sort. So we have a minefield button up here. We're going to select it, and we're going to put a 1-level minefield there. You'll see it says NA right now. And NA means that both sides can see this particular minefield. If I click it again, it increases it to a level 2 minefield. Click it again, it's a level 3 minefield. To remove, just right click and it reduces. As you can see, you can set it to whatever you want. But the really neat thing about this is that if you press the tab, it will change which side will see that minefield. So as NA, doesn't matter, as A, only side A knows that that minefield is there. Now, with pressing tab again, it changed to B. That means only side B knows that minefield is there. So even if this side A, oops, sorry. Even if this side A unit is right there beside it, if the exclusion is set to side B, it won't know that that is there in the scenario until it enters that hex. That brings, having the side awareness here is huge for scenario play, and that's part of the experience that you're going to be seeing when you play the game. You don't know where the enemy has plotted their minefields. You don't know where they've plotted their roadblocks. You don't know, even if, there's no way sorry, I have been corrected, I believe. So back to the minefield, we are changing it to AB, means that neither side sees it. Sorry, I lied. Both sides know it's there. NA means that neither side sees it. I would have to confirm that, but I think that is correct. So no one knows it's there. Side A doesn't know it. Oh no, side A knows it's there. Side B knows it's there. Side A and B knows it's there. Nobody knows that it's there. Sorry for the issue. So yes, in this case, side A knows that the minefield is there. Side B knows that the minefield is there. Both sides know that the minefield is there. Nobody knows that the minefield is there, which could be true. The same will go for bunkers, pillboxes, caves, tunnels, landing zones, IEDs, everything. Alright, so in this case, nobody knows the bunker is there. Side A knows the bunker is there. Side B knows the bunker is there. Both sides know the bunker is there. In the game, if this was a side B bunker and it was occupied, the side A player will not be able to know it's a bunker until they've successfully captured it. Fog of war. Totally fog of war. The same goes for landing zones. So, again, nobody knows there's a landing zone there. Side A knows there's a landing zone there. Side B knows there's a landing zone there. Both sides know there's a landing zone there. And again, nobody. Now, this is useful for play, so you can have a landing zone anywhere within, the opposing sides, and they don't know where they are. They can guess where landing zones would be, but they don't know for sure until the helicopters start landing. And if that's the case, then it's probably too late. Since there are no helicopters, we're not going to worry about that. Let's remove that. Let's put our vehicle back. There we go. Saving it, just cause. What else did I want to show you? So you can highlight special units. We don't have a lot of special units, but for example, we can highlight the headquarters. The headquarters have been highlighted now. The commanders have been highlighted as well. As you can see, fatigued units, we don't have any. Disrupted units, we don't have any. Engineers, we don't have any. These are reconnaissance units, so they're highlighted. There we go. That is a general overview on how the scenario editor works. You can add blocks if you want. Again, change the awareness. You could add wrecks we went through. We can damage hex sides. We can build a pontoon bridge if there's necessary. So let's say for whatever reason there was an engineering issue here and we built a bridge. So we can do that in that hex. It is selected. We can choose the direction. So down right, we want it to go across here. We can change the strength. So we can limit the type of vehicle that is crossing it. 9 means that basically anything can cross it. If you reduced it down to a 1, then only infantry. 5, certain vehicles, etc. But let's add one just to see it. There you go. Heavy pontoon bridge. And it provides a label for you so you instantly recognize what it is. Or if you want, you can have it so that it's damaged. Or damage a bridge. Sorry. Are there any bridges in this? No. There are. Oh no, there's one. Let's see how it happens if we damage it. Where's that button? There we go. So we've damaged that particular bridge. So now you cannot cross there anymore. What else? So you can also set up your units so that they are starting off the game in a particular defensive mode. For example, if they're defending strong or fanatically or just weak. You can also add them having so that they're starting the game digging in. Or if you want to have them loaded, we don't have anything to load into at the moment, but you can select your unit. Here, let's add a truck just so you can see. Let's add the M113. There's 3 strength points. We can grab one of these Ranger platoons, put it inside the same hex. We'll select both of these units and press the load button. So now that they are loaded inside, and I'm identifying that by right-clicking on that, or you can do so by pressing the... Nope, you can't. Just right-clicking. There we go. Yeah, no, tab key doesn't work, Berto. It's not working. Just in the game, tab key. In the scenario editor, not so much. And we can unload them. There we go. So yeah, you can set up your platoons how you want. Airstrikes, we didn't include any. I'll do that in another future video, just to go over it. We're almost at 2 hours here. I think we're pretty well done. The basic overview. I'll show you quickly how to generate a Lua file. You do need to have a few things installed. I use Cygwin for this, and you'll want to know what your name is, what your file name is. So let's go to our installation, scenario files. There we go. There's our scenario and that name. For Lua, you're going to want to install Visual Studio Code. I think you can find it quickly online at the Microsoft site. It is fantastic for working on Lua files. I am not a coder by any means. I've literally only been doing this for about a year. I still have lots to learn, but fortunately Berto has taken this and made it very, very simple. Cygwin is a Linux-like environment designed for Windows, or you can use the newer Microsoft-supported Windows subsystem for Linux. Okay, I'm sure I can, Berto. I don't know how to do that. Maybe in a future video I'll figure out how to do that. But for now, I'm going to show you how to use Cygwin because that's what I know. So I have an install of everything that was required that I went through with Berto showed me how to do it. Thank goodness. So I'm going to change the directory to the CSLint directory. And now I'm going to make a Lua file based on the scenario that we just created. There's a command. Eventually we will give more documentation on how to do this properly. But for now, I'm just going to quickly show you that it's pretty straightforward. There's a bunch of things here that I'm just going to type in, and we'll go through them later. Oops. So now I'm looking for my scenario.san file, and we're going to output it to my scenario.lua file. And if I did that right, just double checking, it will generate a Lua file for us. Which it did. Look at that. So let's open that in Visual Studio. Okay. So as you're looking at it, this is the general guts of a Lua file. It fills in quite a few different things. It identifies where the objectives are. If I had any landing zones, they would also include those. It identifies the units that are included on the map, including their unique IDs, you know, which unit they're called. That'll be useful for, you know, giving orders to these particular units. There's a template for the briefings that is imperative for the campaign series, for our scenarios anyways. And if you scroll down, we include some generic things. So you'll notice that a lot of the scenarios will have some basic things implemented for you already. So how things are structured, some basic commands like this up here, where units or each side, after being fired, they will start losing losing ammo levels, for example. You know, battle plans for each side is set up for you in a way that you can easily, based on whatever the unit is, you can quickly do something. But before we get into that, if you look into the manual folder, you'll find a Lua functions reference text. So this is where all the new toys are that you can utilize in order to have the AI do what you want it to do. There's over 800 different functions that are available for you to use, and that's anything from are units within a particular area, and if so, I want it to do that. Some scripted AI stuff. I mean, I would highly recommend taking a look through this and seeing what is possible. To get ideas of how they work, you can look at an existing scenario and see, okay, what did they do to make this work? And what the options are. How do I give event points? How do I make my units do certain things? Lots and lots of examples within here. But here's a general overview of what those options can be and how you can use them within. There's a lot of Uber functions, which saves you a lot of coding, because it saves me a lot of coding. Berto has been awesome in generating these, and there will be more to come. This is living. This is still new. As we get into Middle East, for example, I'm sure I'm going to find a lot of things that I need added to deal with armored warfare. We haven't had a lot of armored warfare yet because in the early part of Vietnam there wasn't a lot. Later on in the war, sure, absolutely. But now, no. Up to 1967, it was very, very limited. But yeah, comes Middle East, and then later on Eastern Front 3, yeah, we will be at. There will be more Uber functions added, so this will be continually updated for sure. Absolutely. It looks scary at first, but it really isn't. It just takes some logical thought, and once the documentation is out to help you get started, as well as the videos that I do plan on making, very, very basic ones, but at least enough to get you started, that should help. And with your scenario design and making your scenarios far more interesting than just being objective based. Are there any questions? Yeah, there are. Berto was saying that we have QA check utilities. like CS Lua check? Yeah, there are, totally. There's a plethora of CS lint available utilities that will check the files that you're making, so that if there are errors, it'll help inform you about what those errors might be. Again, they're simple tools. They're a one command line thing. You just type in your information, you press enter, and it gives you a list of things that you might want to be looking for or adjusting in your scenario. One thing I like about Visual Studio Code is that if I do something not quite right, for example, if something, and it tells me, hey, there's something missing here, and what would that be? A then is expected. So yeah, I was like, oh yeah, then it fixes it. So obviously it doesn't know what something is yet, but if you were to have something, then yeah. But little things like that makes the scripting a lot easier, especially in Visual Studio Code. Let's close that, and we don't want to save because I don't want to mix up something. Anyways, so yeah, we have a bare Lua file. Maybe one day I'll go in and show you how to do things, but that's not what this is about. Absolutely, this is just a generic introduction. So if we were to open up our scenario, oh wait, not there. Where did I save my file? I did save it, right? Uh-oh. Hang on. Did I save it in the right spot? Yeah, I did. Oh, 62. That's why. There it is. So obviously I didn't fill out the information in the Lua file, so that is blank. And yeah, we can start playing our scenario now. We don't see the Viet Cong because we have Fog of War on, and we don't have anything. The Viet Cong right now won't really do much of anything, except maybe try and capture the points. With the scripting, they'll be more intelligent, but they will probably still try and just capture the points. Right now they are Viet Cong owned points, and we can go with that. But it does work. Sweet, simple, just like that. There are differences. There are 3 main Lua files in the game itself. Just so you know, there's one for every scenario. There's the init Lua file, which is the one that you don't touch. That has a lot of the information for how the AI is going to be functioning. The user Lua file, you can modify that. It has more additional information within it. For example, let's see. If you don't like some of the sayings that we've included when you've captured objectives, you can change this to whatever you want. You can change these to something else, or reduce the amount of them, or add more, or something like that, as long as you're following the right format. But the init Lua file, don't touch. That's Berto's bread and butter. Just leave that alone. The user one, you can edit. You can edit a variety of things in here. I would recommend keeping a copy if you don't know, where to look for or how to edit things. Then you have a backup just in case. Then you don't have to reinstall everything. But mainly the scenario Lua files, those are the ones that you're going to be tinkering with, for sure. Other than that, I think we're done. Any last questions? Give you a second to answer or ask if you have anything. No, I do not. I do not rest. Do I ever rest? Berto was asking. I do not. There's always something to do. For example, I'll give you a little preview. Any guesses what this would be for? Pretty big hint. Pretty big hint. Keeps going and going and going and going. So yeah, that's the regiment file for the Soviets for the future Cold War game. Or maybe Afghanistan. Who knows? All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. I hope you learned something new. Again, you can ask questions in the comments below, or you can head over to the MatrixGames.com forum under the Campaign Series Vietnam forum and ask any questions there. I'm always happy to answer. All of our team is happy to answer. Take care, smile always, and good luck.